It is important to begin with a grounding, a sort of prayer, certainly an invocation that I learned early in life from my elders, acknowledging the breath of our ancestors all around us, the breath of every figure embodied in this remarkable exhibition, and the breath of the ancestors of each of you as artists. I've had the privilege of working in many capacities over the course of my career, and it's my distinct privilege to lead a project that I was now born to create and steward. A project with the audacious goal of documenting every instance of indigenous native slavery hemispherically. So stay tuned, November 1st, a little bit of a commercial and now I've committed myself to that launch date. Hold me to it. Chinchilla, Marina, it has been such an honor to work with you. As you leaned in and you listened, thoughtfully developing this magnificent opening, centering the people who were shaped by and in turn shaped the moments in time, places, and the stories that they carried here. As I think about storytelling, I recognize the Cochiti storyteller, a seated clay figurine of a grandmother or grandfather blossoming vibrantly with children with an open mouth, singing and telling stories into the world. This is more than a clay figurine. It is the embodiment of a tradition and creativity, revealing the profound wisdom and philosophy, a muse, relating the collective memory of a community. Though I don't have enough time to mention every figure and those illuminated by their light, I want to mention at least one embodied in the exhibition. My tocayo, my namesake, the epic figure of Estevanico, el negro al árabe natural de Asemur, the man who rose from Saharan sands, the first of the Africans to set foot in what is now this place. In 1539, he encountered the Ashiwi in Hawiku, an encounter that changed everything, drawn by the legend of 7 cities of Cibola. Guillermo Galindo, thank you for including Estevanico in this mural. I think we missed getting the image into the shot here, but it took my breath away when I saw it, Guillermo. I loved working with Marina and Cecilia, who were not only drawn to illuminate everyday figures, but also to move us past the tricultural, the static, and the stereotypical. Not even just the famous, but past those static individuals to a more authentic New Mexico identity, including the pervasive figure of the conquistador that continues to be etched into logos, monuments, and even Chicano murals. That figure is a vestige of historic trauma and a kind of amnesia that is not only obscured but erased and the far more complex legacy of New Mexicans, including our deep ancestral and contemporary ties to Mexicano and indigenous communities. Instead, I think of the manitos, those chili-colored alfalfa-scraped hands that sustained community and family, hands that tilled the soil, cleared the acequias, picked the peas, shucked the corn, swept the floors, sheared the sheep, that carved the santos, fingered rosary beads and folded together in prayer. They gathered the roots and hierbas, soothed the fevers, pressed tortillas, quilted creativity, and transformed necessity into a way of life. I think of the holy men and women who have long connected ground and sky. I think of the farmers and ranchers whose relationship To land and animals nurture community. I think of the educators who raised up the children, nurturing consciousness. I think of the creatives whose hands, hearts, and minds elevate beauty and consciousness. I think of leaders, formal and informal, particularly those who have had the courage to rise in their hunger for justice. Identity is not static. It cannot be encased in a glass like a museum artifact. Here it is more like nesting dolls, one inside the other, even when it remains hidden. They are there. If I may, I'd like to share at least one story that I think embodies the whole of this exhibition, one that I have scripted for the catalog, which will be released later. I opened my essay imagining a woman who lived over 800 years ago. Her home was Paquila, the place above the water, a village set in the ancient and sovereign landscape. To the south were the Tano villages of the basin that sat upon the land that still holds the memory of a seabed. And to the west lay Ogapoge, whitewater shell place. As she had done every day, one morning this woman stood at the entrance to her house, letting the dawn settle around her body. Looking across the vast horizon, she held a bowl in her hands. As she whispered a prayer and breathed into it, she thought of all those who had come before her and those who would follow. The bowl resembled the other vessels used in daily life, but this one carried meaning beyond function. Imbued by multiple communities, the clay came from an exchange made in the basin where the water had gathered and pooled. The pigment and glaze came from even further away. Even the design depicted, gifted, and adapted through the union that had taken place earlier, generations earlier. Many hands brought this bowl into being, one set carrying water to shape the clay, another coiling it, another gathering the wood to fire it. In the end, what emerged was more than a vessel. It was a creative expression of magnificent convergence, a reflection of relationships woven across time and place. That's this exhibition. Centuries later, when someone unearthed it, the bowl was found filled with beads, corn, macaw feathers, all set beside turquoise, collectively revealing the power of trade that had stretched thousands of miles. When the woman held this bowl that morning, it may have conveyed, if not the sacred, then perhaps a meaningful message signifying an intricate web of knowledge, relations, and beauty that all held in profound syncretism. The bowl is a real artifact, significant in tangible form, but for me it is also symbolic, embodying multitudes of people and the creative imprints that they leave behind. I first saw the bowl nearly 2 decades ago, when renowned archaeologist Dr. Linda Cordell stood in the vault at Pecos National Historic Park holding it. She invited those gathered around her to imagine the deep meaning held in the singular artifact. I was mesmerized by her story and the depth of her knowledge, insights drawn from Puebloan testimony, archaeological interpretation alike. I've never forgotten that moment standing before my friend, who in the telling of this story of the 12th century woman holding the bowl illuminated the astonishing creativity and complexity of this place that eventually would be called New Mexico. I'm a native son of this place, connected across the ages to multiple communities that have shaped it. As a historian and anthropologist, I've had the privilege of listening and sharing stories such as this, even deepening my understanding of how time, place, people reflect a complex story. Collectively, these intersections reveal that New Mexico's people are heirs to a unique and richly woven history, traditions, and a wealth of wisdom and memories, all manifest in the physical and social landscape, tangible, intangible, beautiful, tragic, passed from one generation to the next. New Mexico history is worth remembering. To remember is to call something to mind, pass it through your heart, making it whole, and finally it is, as the Spanish word recordar implies, to awaken. Here, remembering the past is like opening a gift. Remembering invites us to listen to what we hear, look at what we see. It invites us to pull back the layers that make it contested. People, places, moments in time, and stories that reveal the fullness of the human condition. Yet, like any gift worth holding on to it, carries a responsibility. We must learn from those that have gone before us. We must pass this on to new generations to appreciate the value of historical understanding, particularly in a moment that this is being erased. It will invite them in turn to make history that is worth remembering. It is my distinct pleasure now to introduce Cecilia Alemani, someone who needs, of course, no introduction. My grandmother always said, the best storytellers are those who learn how to listen. And she learned how to listen. And she's become the best of the storytellers. Cecilia also embodies a promise core to what it means to be a curator, from the root word cura, cultura, cura, gathering of an imaginative excellence with a force that is both aesthetic and ancestral. Cecilia, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Luis, for your kind words of introduction. Estevan, thank you. This was wonderful. And I also want to thank you for your generosity in being a friend, a colleague. And I remember when I started doing this, when I started working on this project, Luis invited me to meet with you because he knew what I was going to do in terms of thinking about people and individuals that have left a mark in this place. And I still remember our breakfast in a hotel downtown, and that really was the beginning of a great journey together. And I'm really, really so grateful for your time and generosity and expertise. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. I'm sorry I'm going to bore you with lots of words. Many of you have heard me already, but I want to take this opportunity to walk you through the exhibition, my thinking about it, and share images with you for those of you who have not seen it. And I'm going to start because we have half an hour. So I speak very fast. So, as you know, the exhibition is titled Once Within a Time, which is a title that I borrowed from an amazing artist and filmmaker called Godfrey Reggio, who is also an artist in the exhibition. I've said often that when I was a teenager in Italy in the 1990s, I remember watching his films in the middle of the night with the amazing score of Philip Glass. Many of you know the incredible trilogy called Quasi Trilogy with movies like Koyaanisqatsi and Poyakatsi, and it made such an impact on me. And when I started working on this project, I remember Brandy, my colleague here from SITE, shared an amazing list of artists to go meet in Santa Fe and in the region. And I saw his name, and I had no idea that he actually lived here. And so we had a great visit with him, and I got to see his most recent movie, which was called Once Within a Time, which is very, very different from everything that you've seen from the 80s and 90s. And the movie just blew my mind because he also shared so many of the atmospheres and temperatures and themes that I was already thinking about for this exhibition, including the idea of storytelling, but also there is a little bit of surrealism, which is also my passion, but also, children's that play as actor. And so I asked him if I could borrow the title, and he agreed. And so he's one of the many origins of this exhibition. The exhibition is very much grounded in storytelling. One of the challenges that I wanted to think about as I started this project was I knew I didn't want to come here from New York, where I live, with a big idea or a big concept or a big theme and just execute it here. I wanted to sort of reverse and unlearn what I knew and started a learning process that was extensive, quite long, but incredibly stimulating. I always had this dream of doing an exhibition about the life of one person and inviting artists to imagine also or illustrate the life of a person that could be real or fictional. And as I started doing research for around Santa Fe history and culture and New Mexico, it soon became clear that it would be impossible to just identify one person. So we decided that the exhibition, rather than having a theme or a concept, would be grounded in the life of 27 characters or individuals or figures of interest, as we call them. And the life of these people would be, first of all, the roots that would ground the exhibition within Santa Fe and the region, but also would be the sort of individuals and life that would inspire also contemporary artists. So the exhibition features 27 figures, but also 71 artists, many of whom are here tonight. And sometimes we invite artists to respond directly to the life of these people. Other times, as curators, we brought together groupings of artworks and languages that would sort of resonate with those lives. So while there isn't a general theme for the exhibition, certainly there are sub-themes or concepts that you encounter, especially throughout SITE, and that are very much inspired by the life of these figures. And you encounter the figure also throughout the exhibition space. They often have a different label, and they also are there with an object maybe they left behind. And the object doesn't have to be, of course, an artwork, if they are artists maybe, but it could be something they carried in their pocket or just an everyday object. The cast of characters we chose are not necessarily famous people. They are contemporary or past. They are real or fictional. They can be a character from a book, or they can be something that we invented. They are sometimes famous or unsung. But it was important for me to bring, within this idea of storytelling, to bring the existential experience of a lot of people that have left their mark in this place. And so the biography of these people is very much in dialogue with contemporary artists. As I mentioned, we have 71 artists. They're both local, Americans, or from the rest of the world, and many new commissions that you will see throughout the exhibition. As Louis mentioned, we have 14 venues in the show. SITE is one, and then they are divided in 4 clusters. Of course, there is the Rail Yards. Don't forget to go see the Waffle Garden just behind the building. Downtown Santa Fe has 7 venues, Museum Hill, and then we only have one venue that is not in Santa Fe, in Tesuque, which is called Finquita. The way we chose this venues was also quite important for the show. Of course, this is the 30th anniversary, so we wanted the show to be a sprawling investigation and celebration of the city, but it also was more meaningful in the sense of thinking about the relationship between the artists, the figures, and the venues. So as much as we could, the venues were chosen in relationship to the artists that we wanted to show there, or vice versa. So the venues are not actually just venues, but they are seriously collaborators and partners for both us and the artists themselves. So I'm just going to run through a few images, actually a bunch, but bear with me. I'll try to go quick, but not too quick. Here we are all at SITE. I hope you all saw the exhibition here. The exhibition begins with this vinyl on the facade of SITE. It's a collaboration between Wang Shui and Mariam Ossehini, and it portrays two bodies intertwined with a snake. You can see the beautiful reflection that it casts on the building. And next to them, you can see an amazing new work by Louise Lawler, which is the sort of wallpaper that you see on the walls, which is one of her adjusted to fit pieces in which she takes a detail of one of her photographs and stretches it to cover the entire surface of the wall. And these two works in dialogue sort of welcome you into the exhibition space, which you've learned. It's very much about the idea of circular narrative and storytelling. So I wanted to begin the exhibition with two works that would envelop the viewers into the exhibition. The following room is titled in The Wheel of Telling, and the Wheel of Telling comes from actually the very unique words of N. Scott Momaday, an amazing poet who unfortunately passed away last year, but whose words and poems were also very, very influential in my thinking about storytelling. And you can read the poem here or on the label or on your little book, but it is really much about the idea not just of passing down traditions and stories from generation to generation, but also the idea that everything is connected, all the stories are connected into this wheel of telling. And so first of all, we were very pleased to be able to include some of his amazing artworks, these 7 prints. And the works that are in dialogue with him are 2 majestic sculptures by Simon Lee, which you can see in this slide, that are very much in dialogue with the Helen Cordero's storytelling figures that Estevan just mentioned. You can see them on the back vitrines. And that work by Helen Cordero was very, very much one of the very first artworks and objects that we wanted to bring into the exhibition. And I think there are some interesting echoes and connections between those figures and Simon Lee's clay sculptures. And all around them, a fantastic piece by Dominique Knowles, again, enwraps the space and makes the space feel incredibly warm and welcoming. The second room that you see in the exhibition here begins with this lady. Her name is Doña Mala. She's a witch, and she was made by a gentleman called Gustav Baumann, who was a very famous artist. Many of you from Santa Fe know his work. He is in all major collections here. He is known for paintings and woodcuts, but he was also an amazing puppeteer and made lots of different puppets that he would kind of animate in the for different festivities. The background as well is a copy of an original one. And I also want to say that there is an amazing exhibition coming up of his work at the New Mexico Museum, I think starting in July. But what Doña Mala does, she introduces a section of the exhibition that is sort of about the uncanny, or the feeling that we feel or we experience when we see something that looks like us, but it's actually inanimated. So there is this kind of push and pull feeling as we look at dolls and mannequins and different figures. Here you can see 3 incredible paintings by Yun Yao Zhang, a great artist from Shanghai, based in Paris. Pay attention to them. They're incredibly sophisticated in the way they're made. It's graphite on felt. And the exhibition starts including many different portraiture or portraits of figures or broken bodies, including these Norman Zammit paintings, which were realized in 1962 and exhibited here at the University of Albuquerque in 1963. They were heavily censored. He was a teacher there, and he quit the job in protest and went on to do quite different minimalist work. So these are incredibly rare paintings to see, and they've not been seen or shown much. The exhibition continues with other portraits of bodies in pieces, including on this red wall, Louise Bonnet, who is an amazing artist based in Los Angeles, who responded actually to other works in the show by D.H. Lawrence, which I'm going to show you in a second, other mannequins by Greg McGregor in these photographs of the 1955 Nevada atomic test and this weird ghost village that was built to see the effects of the bomb onto people. And in the same room, we share another figure of interest, which is Doña Tules. Doña Tules was a saloon owner here in Santa Fe. She had a very famous bar or casino, or you can call it many different ways, in Burro Alley. But it was a very, very successful business, and she was also, to me, she's also representing one of the many independent women that came to this part of the world in the 18th century, in the 1800 and early 1900, because there was also a sense of freedom, of liberty that could happen here in New Mexico. She apparently ran a very successful business, made a lot of money that were kept into this beautiful petaca or chest, which is very, very special. And so part of the exhibition also think about the sort of multifaceted power of sexuality. Here you see a very powerful work by a Danish artist called Sitzel Mensche. It is a sort of replica of an anatomical Venus, which were sculptures or objects that were made in Italy in the 18th century, and they were used for anatomical studies for aspiring doctors and students who, instead of using a corpse to dissect, they were, open in their belly, and you could see all the different organs. They were made of glass or wax. But they were also incredibly objectifying the female body. Very often, the corpse itself was incredibly sexualized with pearls and lipstick and a very sensual pose. So Sitzel has kind of got rid of all those details and made this. It's a very impressive sculpture made of wax. So I invite you all to take a closer look without touching, please. And the exhibition continues with many artists who sort of either reference directly or indirectly this idea of sensuality, including Katia Seb, whose paintings you can see here on the right-hand side, or Santiago de Paoli, who brought this incredible painting made of copper. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see just here, you can see the very famous but very little seen paintings by D.H. Lawrence, who, of course, we all know as a very important author. He wrote novels like Lady Chatterley's Lovers, but he also spent time in New Mexico. So every time you encounter an artist who is no longer with us, he or she are in the show because they had ties with New Mexico or relationship with New Mexico. So D.H. Lawrence came in, I believe, 1925 or 26 to be a guest of Mabel Dodge Luhan, who was a woman who sort of created an artist colony in Taos, inviting many, many famous artists and authors and just cultural people to come to New Mexico. D.H. Lawrence and his wife Frida were also here. And while these paintings were not made here, but they were made, I believe, in Italy, they were shown in the UK in 1927, and they were heavily censored and confiscated by Scotland Yard. They are still censored. They cannot be shown in the UK. But for a long story that I won't say, they actually are located here in the Southwest. They belong to someone that has generously allowed us to show the original paintings, and they're quite incredible. I invite you to spend some time, because right now they make us laugh or smile. They're not so daring, but there is a little bit of nudity, and to me, it's more like there are some sort of connection with religious composition, like the Holy Family or Adam and Eve, but they are quite special. And we're very, very happy to have them. And thank you, Luis, for basically driving out there to take them. To the right-hand side, you see a beautiful work by Penny Sayopis, this 128 drawings or paintings that are incredibly fascinating. They hover between abstraction and figuration, and as much as you look at them, you start seeing things in them. You see breasts and figures and animals. I don't know, maybe I'm imagining, but the artist is here. She can tell you more about it. And then, of course, in the same section with dolls and puppets is the amazing movie by Godfrey Reggio, which we have mentioned, which is in the heart of the exhibition. Where I'm standing now, we are also showing normally a film by Wael Shwaki, who is an amazing artist from Egypt, whose work is also shown at CCA on a schedule, so please check the map to see when it's on view at the cinema. As you walk into the following room at site, the atmosphere and the temperature changes completely. You went from a room that had lots of tones of orange and red to a cooler room that is dominated by blues. And the first object that you encounter is this rod that is sitting on this beautiful kind of plexi holder. It belonged to a gentleman called Francis Schlatter, who was a healer that came from Europe to the Southwest in the end of the 1800s. And wandered around the region and was believed to have magic powers to cure people and to sort of, like he would gather giant crowds of people in Albuquerque and many other places because he was believed to have these magic abilities, but he also carried this stick. This is also one of the very first objects that we knew we wanted in the show because it introduces a section of the exhibition that largely speaking, talks about the idea of energy. Energy on one side as something that people have connected not only with him or to other forms of alternative healing like curanderia, but also as New Mexico as a destination, especially in the beginning of the 1900s, for health seekers that were trying to be cured from tuberculosis for the high elevation, but also this idea that this is a sort of magic land or spiritual land that has magic powers or embedded in it. And this is why you can see the three paintings behind by Agnes Pelton, who is a fantastic artist who spent most of her time in Cathedral City in California, but was connected briefly with the Transcendental Painting Group, which was a movement here in Taos and Santa Fe from 1938 to 1942 of artists who portrayed landscape scene that were very much embedded with the religious and spiritual elements. Next to it, you see the work of a contemporary artist, Maya Rutznik, this incredible, excuse me, green canvas where you can really see she's empowering her color with almost spiritual powers, but also another historical artist called Rebecca Salisbury James, who is came to the region as guests of Mabel Dodge Luhan in the 1920s and decided to stay and lived most of her life here until she passed away. And she was married with Paul Strand and was also friend with Georgia O'Keeffe and Alfred Stieglitz. They were the foursome who came to Taos, but she was an incredible artist. She made these works on the right-hand side are made on reverse glass, which is a very complicated technique that she probably learned from folk movements and kind of, but it's quite rare to see her works. You might see some in collections here in Santa Fe, but we were very happy to be able to gather many works by her, thanks to the help of many institutions and colleagues here. And then she also made these beautiful colchas, which are the three works kind of in the middle, which are embroidered, and it's a known kind of Hispanic technique using churro wool to create this beautiful composition that are often religious, and then to the left, it's almost like an altar that she had in her home with hundreds of little objects that we assemble. And then the exhibition continues. Here you can see some other images of the show. The second part of this room, let me finish once. Yeah, the second part of this room kind of shows the other side of what we say or we call energy. Of course, everyone knows New Mexico is also the land where the Los Alamos laboratory are located, the infamous Manhattan Project happened, and many artists in the show are reflecting not just on that specific period, but also on the legacy of the nuclear exploitation of this land that continues to affect a number of communities in the region. On the left side, you see Joanna Keane Lopez, who created this stunning installation that highlights also the sort of domestic or like the effect on families, especially thinking back at the Trinity tests. To the right-hand side, you can see 7 new paintings by Diego Medina, who is also thinking of his own landscape in New Mexico, interweaving family history in it, and then Terran Lasgan at the very back. Here in the front, you can see 4 amazing sculptures by Luis Tapia, who is reinterpreting the tradition of santos or traditional wooden sculptures that are often depicting religious themes, but upgrading them with contemporary themes like immigration and women's rights. And then to the right, you can see Will Wilson's photographs of giant uranium mines in Navajo Nation mostly that have been covered by this weird monolith, and he's pairing them with black and white photographs of famous land art destinations across the Southwest, including Spiral Jetty and Sun Tunnels. Don't forget to go outside that way to see the mural by a Mexican artist called Minerva Cuevas, who is also thinking about a sort of depicting an apocalyptic landscape that is very much influenced by Akira, the Japanese kind of sci-fi movie, but also thinking about is like a cloud, is an atomic cloud, and many other elements, including a reflection on the effect of large corporations like General Electric on this land. And then also in the Waffle Garden behind the building, another wonderful piece by Jimena Garrido Lecca, who is also thinking about the legacy of the nuclear history. The following room sort of changes themes and concepts and thinks about the sort of idealized vision that many of us have of this country, of this region, the land of enchantment on one side, but then on the other side also the effect of climate change and the damaging effect of humans on the environment. The figure of interest here is Vladimir Nabokov, who you all know as a wonderful writer of some novels like Lolita, but maybe you don't know that he was a very talented lepidopterist. He studied butterflies. Between the 1940s and 50s, he took several trips across the country to study and do research for Lolita on one side, but also to chase butterfly. In 1941, he comes to Santa Fe and he stays to El Rey Court Hotel, and he apparently got very much in trouble with the police because he was pouring liquid sugar on a trunk of a tree to attract moths and butterflies. We didn't find his police report, so I don't know if this is a legend or not, but he made many sketches in notebooks where he very carefully studied different, butterfly species, mimetism, fly patterns, sexual organs of butterflies. These are the original drawings. They are extremely rare to see. They come from the New York Public Library, and so I invite you to spend time with them because they are really rare. And then he also wrote a beautiful poem about butterflies. And then this room expands on that with work by Simon Lee, Uman, who is a Somalian artist who has this very kaleidoscopic visions of nature, Ishan Kim, who is an amazing artist who is also here somewhere, who made this incredibly sophisticated organic sculpture that feels almost like an organ or like a seed, and then many other artists that sort of expand this idyllic vision of nature, like Pop Chile on the back wall. And then here on the floor, you can see a new commission by Rui Zhan, who is an incredible artist from China. She's here somewhere, who sort of, to me, it's almost a vision of the future in which nature has become almost a fossil made of iron and bronze on this gorgeous platform. And on the back, you can see photos by Maureen Gruben, who is an artist from the Northwest Territories of Canada, who is kind of intertwining her own personal stories with found photos of oil exploitation on the coast. This is a very poetic work of Dion Lee, a very talented photographer who really finds beauty in nature and draws in nature with nothing, almost like just with a line of water. And then the last part of the exhibition site is in the site lab, the first gallery as I walk to your right. This is a gallery dedicated to language. The figure of interest here is Chester Nez, who was one of the 29 original Navajo code talkers, who was a group of Navajo men who were hired or employed by the military particularly during the Second World War, to create a code that could not be cracked by the enemy. And the code, of course, was the Navajo language. And so all around that figure, you see artists thinking about language both as a weapon and as a means or something to be, or like a very strong sign of identity to be repressed. This is a work of Will Rawls on the wall with this sort of alphabet and prints that says, "You can't escape alive." Here on the white pedestal is a radio by Autumn Chacon, who you heard also from Louis is going to have a major performance during Indian Market in August, so we'll make sure that you all know about that. And then here we are pairing two very different or seemingly different works. On the left, you have Tree Tapestry by Marie-Louise Schultz, who is a fantastic artist who has often portrayed through weaving, so through a very traditional technique, computer chips or like digital components of computers, and then in dialogue with these computer drawings by Frederick Hammersley, who was, of course, an artist many of you might know, but who got a chance to work with the very, very first art program in a computer at the University of Albuquerque in the mid-60s, and made these beautiful drawings using punch cards. So thinking about also the genesis of this, also as looms also use punch cards, and completely different outcome, but very similar genesis. This is a work of Candice Lynn, which you can see in a separate room, in which she's thinking about the complexities, not just of how to store nuclear waste. This is a video shown on a sort of base made of salt, but she's thinking about the WIP, the waste isolation plant that exists in the south of the state, where atomic waste has been put aside in salt caves that are supposed to both absorb and kind of seal. But the most, besides, of course, the devastating effect of this in the state, there is also an interesting dilemma on how to communicate the danger of this site in the far future, like 10,000 years from now, 20,000 years from how when maybe first, maybe there won't be people, and if there are people, maybe they everyone speaks English. And so what is the sign or signage that can be put out to warn people that they should not dig a hole where the atomic waste is? And her idea was to have fluorescent cats or glow-in-the-dark cats that you can see spread around. And then this sort of section ends with a funny little light piece by an Italian artist called Diego Marcon, in which you see two little moles talking to each other in Italian. They read these very, very long scripts that have numbers and sums and additions that don't make any sense. They don't sum up, but you can learn a little bit of Italian numbers. And this is the billboard outside by Nora Turato. Don't miss it. It's amazing. It says, "I want out," which is not a feeling that I have right now. Luis. Gotta rush. Oh my gosh. No. Yes. So very, very quickly, I'm going to run you through downtown. The first venue that you might encounter is the St. Francis Auditorium, which is part of the New Mexico Museum, where Maya Rutznik inserted 3 amazing canvases into the niches where normally there are existing paintings by Donald Beauregard. Go see, because they're amazing. At the Palace of the Governors, 2 artists, Daisy Quesada Ureña and Cherise Weston, took over 2 rooms of this important building and brought their work. I'm not going to talk about that because Daisy is going to talk about that very, very soon. So I don't want to spoil, but go visit. And this is a good example of a venue that I think, of course, many of you from Santa Fe are very familiar with, but you might not have been back since you were a kid. And so this is a way for contemporary art and for the international to take you back to a historical place in Santa Fe and look at it through different eyes. This is the work of Cherise. At Best Days, just across the street at the cannabis store. Don't get confused. As you walk inside the store, there is an amazing machine that rolls joints. That's not the artwork. Although it looks amazing. But we have a great work by Omari Daglin, who turned this sort of lounge into a toys factory where you can gently hug the sculptures. Gently. At Shiprock, the store on the plaza, you can see the work of Yunyao Zhang, whose work is also here, but I really suggest you to come and see. It's a very, very beautiful, delicate series of drawings that include also a number of amazing New Mexican plants that Brandy went to collect. And here you can see the gallery. Las Palomas Hotel was very generous in giving us a small space behind the hotel where Gabrielle Lirondelle Hill is bringing her spider play, a number of 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional works that will act during the show and change position. Doodlets is an amazing toy store that for all of you based here in Santa Fe, you probably have lots of memories. David Horowitz, who is also going to talk very soon, so I won't spoil it, but he collaborated with one of the artists that made objects for the store. This is the work of Amol Patil, who is on view at the Santa Fe Village. Sorry, the pictures are not great, but the work is amazing. You have to go and see it in person. Amol is also going to speak just after, so I won't talk too much about it. Finquita is this incredible venue that we have in the former Shidoni Galleries in Tesuque. We have an incredible installation by Guillermo Galindo, which Estevan just mentioned before. Sorry, we didn't have a slide for you, but it's hard to see in the photo. The photo doesn't pay justice, but this is a rendition of Pablo Picasso's Guernica with burned wood and other elements. You can maybe recognize the horse here, but he also reproduced that as a mural in vinyl, but instead of the famous characters of the paintings, each element is actually an individual or creature or something connected to the history of Santa Fe and New Mexico. We'll share the lists of who is who. In the next room, you see the work of David Horowitz again. It's a very fascinating story, but I'm not going to talk about it because David is here and he will talk about it in a second. But you can see these great views. a sort of floating fairy tale bed by Agnes Scherer. And then there is another building at Finchita that is much more industrial, and we have quite different installations, mostly video installation by Namira, an amazing piece by Max Superschneider. He is also in the talk, in the panel right after, so good luck in explaining this. Saudat Ismailova. And then I want to, of course, mention the incredibly powerful installation by Korakrit Arun Andonchai. I think he's here. I don't see him. But you just have to go around the building, make sure not to miss it. This was a piece that was partly inspired by Zozobra and by the fire spirit. What you see in this picture is the actual torch that is used by the fire spirit to set Zozobra in fire during the fiesta. So as you walk into the space, you first encounter this wonderful floor that is made of ashes that have been collected from the site of Zozobra from last year, and earth and many other things. You pay attention to the poem that is written embossed on the edges, and then there is a second room in the back which has a very, very emotional charge to it and a fantastic video playing. And then outside, again, the incredible work of Max Superschneider, but I will let him talk about it in a second. And then finally, Museum Hill, 3 incredible institutions that have partnered with us, including the Military Museum, where we did a show sort of inspired by aliens and extraterrestrial forces, including the work of Carla Knight. Tomorrow, I don't remember what time, there is an amazing talk with Marina and Carla at the Military Museum. John McCracken, who was a resident of Santa Fe, known as a minimalist artist, but also known because he firmly believed in being able to communicate to other dimensions and entities, maybe through his sculptures. There were portals, and he made, we're showing what you see on the vitrines are rarely seen sketches and drawings in which he talks about his own sculptures as a way to communicate with other dimensions, and those 2 mandala paintings are also his. And then the show continues with Joseph Joachim and Hiranabi, and very important, don't miss the amazing film by Ali Cherry that is playing in the auditorium. At the Willard Museum, we were so pleased to be able to partner with this incredible institution. We took over the Kla Gallery with an exhibition that thinks about the idea of a journey, both through landscape, language, and across generations, featuring works by Nora Naranjo Morse. In the middle, to the side, left and right, you can see Skyopinka. This is an incredible installation by Cristina Flores Pescuran, who is going to perform tomorrow, twice, I believe. And then the work of the amazing Santa Fe-based artist Emmy Whitehorse, new work and old work, so it's quite important to see them in person. And then outside, you will be greeted by the great Raven Half Moon with 2 very powerful sculptures in the terrace. And then finally, the last institution is the Folk Art Museum, which has been a fantastic partner since the very, very beginning. This is a good example of a collaboration in which the artist was really, really interested in thinking about the collection of the museum, the mission of the museum. Zhan Zhu Zhang, who I think is also here, turned a gallery that is underground into an amazing installation completely covered by paper. He makes gorgeous sculptures that are made of paper and often are very elaborately crafted into these statuettes that are often also used for funerary rituals in Taiwan, where he comes from. And so besides his work, which is really fascinating, you will also see a number of vitrines where we arranged objects from the collections, from other cultures also, and thinking about funerary rituals. And yeah, Jean was very interested in that. And I think I'm done. But before, sorry, let me get a... I know I went over. Sorry, Matthew. And I know you already thank everyone I wanted to thank, so I'm going to thank them again because they have to hear from me. I want to thank Luis because you are so incredible. And Many people ask me why have I accepted this job, and my answer is because of you, because you've been so supportive. You've always said yes to everything I asked you. So, but I also want to thank Clara, but also the entire curatorial team. I know we thank you already, Marina, but stand up, because Marina, Brandy, and Samantha. You know, this is the curatorial team. We've been working together for 1.5 years. It's a complicated exhibition to do, and the team has been incredible in researching and executing and supporting each other. So I felt welcome since the day I started working here. I also, another shout out to the external affair team, because as you can see in the show, the number of labels, guidebooks, directions, everything takes such a great care and so much work, much more work than the exhibition itself. And so shout out to Caro, Shannon, and Bonnie, and the entire development team for raising the money to make this show. Matthew, the creativity and learning, and everyone working in visitor service. You're going to be the ambassadors of this show. This show is yours now, and I'm really grateful for your creativity in coming up with so many ways of offering new entry points and new ways of interpreting this exhibition. And I want to thank every single person that worked in the exhibition team. Max Holmes, who leads the exhibition team, with Sabrina, Patrick, Stevie, Alex Palma, and Colin, but also every single preparator that has worked literally for 3 months on every single installation. You know, we started installing so long ago, so I want to read their name: Erin and Kathleen, Lisa, Dusty, Randall, Jonathan, Damon, John, Justin, Rhiannon, Lillian, Jason, Daniel, Michael, Jefferson, Cody, Spencer, Hannah, August, Jess, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but you know, I always get the credit for this exhibition, but the credits have to be shared with every single person that I mentioned, and with all of you. I also want to give a special thanks to Godfrey Reggio, who is a legend, and I really hope you get to meet him in person. He's amazing, and I feel really honored to be able to bring his work here in the exhibition. And also, I want to mention, besides Estevan, who has been so generous with his knowledge, also Alicia Ines Guzman, who writes for the catalog, but who has also been incredibly generous in sharing her expertise. And then finally, just a big thanks to all the artists. Come on, stand up, come up in the front, and then you can go for a break. Thank you.